Starting your own business and being a consultant or being a gig employee is amazing, mostly because you get to be your own boss and you're an accountant and your own sales team and your own marketing team and your own collections agent, janitor. Hey folks, Mark here from The Rational Workforce. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about consulting, freelancing, gig economy, all of the above, and some of the pluses and minuses to it. And more importantly, what are the 5 things that you really need to be aware of before you decide to make this move? And what prompted today's topic is there was an article in the June 27th issue of the Wall Street Journal, and it's called The Key to Salary Happiness. And honestly, when I first read the headline, my cynical mind went directly to, okay, this is going to be an article about how we should all prepare to earn less and how much better our lives will be when we do that. Not quite. It's actually an interesting piece about empowerment and kind of gives you a lot to think about. So the net of the situation is a majority of workers feel that they're fairly paid, but at the top of the list are independent workers across all industries, according to a recent survey of 2,500 American workers. The article continues to read. About 3/4 of independent workers, freelancers, and consultants surveyed by payroll services provider ADP earlier this year said they felt they were paid fairly, compared with 70% of part-time employees and 68% of full-time staffers. So, really not a huge swing in numbers there, from 75% down to 68%. So by and large, seems like people are happy with what they're making, or they at least feel like it's fair. Great news, right? And, one of the areas that the article really explores is the whole concept of kind of going out on your own. And I just wanted to highlight, there's a gentleman that they focus on here, Brendan Little, a freelance consultant who helps foundations and groups train employees who work with people experiencing homelessness, poverty, and other issues. He used to work in full-time public policy roles for the city of Boston, earning between $90,000 and $94,000 a year. After the pandemic, he said he wanted to spend more time with his family. He now earns $100 to $150 an hour and works 20 to 30 hours per week. It goes on to say his yearly income is now about $40,000, less than half of what he used to make, and he now has to spend time billing and networking for new business, but he describes his work arrangement as perfect. What's most important to me right now is my family, doing something that I feel is useful in the world, and something that's creative. And, that's wonderful. That's great. And we all have to consider this trade-off between time that we're putting in at work, what we're earning at work, and what's really important to us. And those are great conversations to have with yourself whenever you're considering a big move. But, you have to be in a position where, in this example, he's taken half of his salary. Not a lot of people can do that. And if you are going to make the move into freelancing or consulting or gig work, the economics of it is something you definitely need to consider, especially when you're starting to ramp up. But, in today's piece, I really wanted to talk about what are the top 5 things that I learned in my 4+ years now as an independent consultant and a business owner, that I wish I knew going into it, or I wish I really kind of dug into going into it. I would have made the same decision, no doubt, but there are absolutely some things that you need to be aware of. So number 1 is the lifestyle change, right? So, I think that there tends to be a lot of articles and kind of rose-colored glasses dreaminess about going out on your own and kind of being your own boss, right? That's great, you are, but the economic realities are you have to grind, right? Think about it. As more and more people do this, the competition for what you do is likely getting higher. So you need to make sure that you're going into this in the mindset that I'm going to be spending extra time hustling for business. I'm going to be spending extra time doing billing and invoicing and quotes and proposal pitches and networking. And, a lot of that stuff you might be doing in your day-to-day job. But when you become a consultant, when you become an independent contractor, it's something you absolutely need to make sure that you're focusing on if you want to stay afloat. One of the things that I do that I spend a lot of time on, and it's typically kind of outside of regular work hours, is my LinkedIn posts, my social posts, things like that. I've found a tremendous amount of business, particularly on my posts on LinkedIn, of just folks I've worked with before who kind of understand the ethics and ethos of the business I'm building and the value I bring. And it makes a big difference, right? Like just keeping yourself out there and visible is important. So make sure that you go into it clear-headed and understand that. Number 2, expenses. So this is something that you really, really cannot mess around with. You need to understand the expenses that are associated with the taxes that you need to withhold. And depending on the state you're in, there's going to be different amounts that you need to tuck away. Do not mess with that, because if you don't put enough away or pay enough taxes on a quarterly basis, you can pay it back over time. You're going to get some late charges and fees and penalties and things that are associated with that. So don't cost yourself extra money if you don't have to. The other thing is the reality of health insurance. Now that's a biggie. So just spirit of full disclosure for me, it's my wife and I have 3 children. I'm spending about $1,800, $1,900 per month on health insurance. Last year we went with a much lower plan, but my kids are athletic. I've got kids that, are always straining something, pulling something. We consume a lot of healthcare. So those kind of low deductible plans, and mentally you go, all right, I'll just save money aside for it. We're going to end up being out of pocket around the same amount. So for me personally, I prefer the safety blanket of having a more like traditional healthcare plan where I can just go to the doctor, pay a small copay, and not worry about it. But that's a massive expense. It's a massive expense, especially if you're a family. So a little less onerous if you're single, but if you've got a family and they're relying on you for that sort of thing, that's one of those perks that you get through an employer that when you go out on your own, boy, do you appreciate the value of that when you're back in the workforce. Number 3, deadbeat clients. These are never fun situations to deal with. I've only had to deal with a couple in the 4 years that I've been doing this. But you have to get paid, right? This is your livelihood. If you're not getting paid, you've got to get creative, right? I just had a recent encounter where I did a bunch of work for a company. The person that I did the work for went dark when it came time to paying the invoice. When I had to go to the CEO, that caused a whole dust up. Look, when it comes to getting paid, sometimes you're not going to make friends. But the folks that really take advantage of freelancers and decide that either they'll pay on their own convenience or not pay at all or try a switcheroo terms, it's not fun. It's not fun, and you always feel icky about it after the fact. So make sure you have a great attorney that you can go to. Make sure that you're having good agreements that you're signing up front. And look, also be flexible. Sometimes companies hit financial situations, and there were times where I had to set up a payment plan for a client. Sometimes you just have to do that, right? You don't want to be a bastard if you don't have to be. But at the end of the day, you do the work, you honor the contract, you got to get paid. And that's not fun. It's those extra cycles that you need to put into things to run your own business, that can be a very, very time-consuming one. So just be aware that that's likely you're going to bump into it at some point in time. But just be judicious on the front end when you choose who you're working with, and you can avoid some of that heartache later on. Number 4, and this is a biggie for a lot of people, mental health. So again, I'm an independent contractor. The agency that I run is when I need folks that will do specialized work. I've been very blessed to have like a library of amazing talent that I can kind of put together a dream team on any job for my clients. But at the end of the day, I am the business is me. And that can be a little bit of a lonely place, right? Like I miss the camaraderie of going into an office. I miss the water cooler chatter sometimes. Not the politics, but just the friendships that you develop at work. And a lot of my friendships in adult life are friends that I made at work and I've just maintained through the years. A lot of my clients are people that I was colleagues with before, and we just maintained a friendship through the years. So, you've got to get creative in making sure that you're kind of fueling those other aspects of yourself to kind of keep your mental health happy and at a positive place. Imposter syndrome is real too, right? So like last year was an absolutely killer year for the business. And, sometimes you get to wondering of, what did I do to deserve this? Oh my gosh, like I'm going to get found out. All of it's nonsense. All of it's BS. It's the negative self-talk in your head. So you've got to learn to quiet that down. And the other piece is like, you need to make sure that you're doing things that put gas in your tank outside of grinding for the business, right? So full disclosure, last year I got to a point of burnout. I was working a minimum of 60 hours a week, usually 80, just about every weekend. I took a couple of weeks off, and I've gotten very good at when I'm off. I go dark. I make sure my clients are covered, but I go dark. But outside of that, it was an absolute burnout. And I kind of got to the holiday season and I said, I was going to autopilot and grow the business even more this year and double the size and get an office space and take out a loan and start staffing up. And I just hit this wall and said, why? This was the expected path that I wanted. This is what I always dreamed about, even when I was younger. Is that something that I still want? And if not, what do I want? And I've been working with a coach, and it has been a night and day difference for me mental health wise this year. I lightened my client load a little bit. It's ramping back up again, but by design, I lightened it up through the first half of the year so I could kind of figure out those big questions. This channel is largely an output of those coaching sessions, and an opportunity for me to be creative and to put something out there and to share my experiences with folks like you who are watching this. So shout out to my coach, Georgia. I'll put a link to her LinkedIn in the comment section below, but make sure you're taking care of your mental health. That is so, so important. And then the number five thing you need to know before you go out on your own is it is awesome. It is liberating. It's empowering. It is a tremendous opportunity for you to double down and bet on yourself, especially in tumultuous economic times. It's really quite a powerful thing when you can go out on your own and you can make it and you can survive. And I'm kind of looking back at the past 4 years I've been doing it. And, never say never. I could, encounter this incredible dream company that I just want to put all my energy into. And I would put my consultancy on the side burner. But I don't see that happening. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm really enjoying being able to help more companies than just one. I'm enjoying making impact on teams more than just one at a time. So, it's about what fuels you and what makes you tick. But if you ultimately determine that this is right for you, man, there's nothing like it in the world. And I wish you lots of luck. So with that, we're going to wrap up today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, thanks for hanging in this long anyway. If you did like it, I would appreciate it if you would hit the like button, hit subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things, because we're trying to grow this channel. It's about 3 weeks old at the point of recording this, and we're starting to grow. We'd love to see those subs grow more, and we'd love your help. So with that, we're going to sign off. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you have an amazing day. We'll see you.